You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
For Todd, recipients of the Medal of Valor. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage throughout the day. It's free. Don Hartley, Tasco Media, Tuscaloosa.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show. This is the TGIF edition for Friday, February 2, 2024. It is Groundhog Day. Real quick, Justin, before we go any further, because you think, 59 years of age, this would be, of course, it's Punxsutawney Phil, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Is it, if he sees his shadow, there's 6 more weeks of winter, or if he doesn't? What is it? Do you know?
It's if he sees his shadow, there's more winter.
All right, what was it?
It's an early spring.
What was it in Punxsutawney today? Have you checked?
Punxsutawney Phil did not see his shadow, so we're having an early spring apparently this week.
Okay, but if he had been here, he would have seen his shadow. But he's not here. All right, I got it. Okay, so anyway, early spring, which is kind of common around this part of the country anyway, but I don't know how Punxsutawney Phil there in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania can set the standard for the entire spring for everywhere around the country. But there you go. There you go. All right. So should be an early spring. But to welcome into the program, I'm Gary Harris on the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. Justin Jones, you just heard from him. He is producing the program, taking your phone calls this hour on the First and Main Condos hotline at 205-342-9904. We got a jam-packed show for you today. Jam-packed show. So we're looking forward to that. I'll run it down for you here in just a moment. But first, I need to tell you, as always, this hour of the program being brought to you by my good friends at Alabama Credit Union. When I say good friends, that's not just a, form of speech. That is the truth. Steve Swafford, the CEO, all the people in that organization. I'm a member. I really think you ought to look at becoming a member too, because it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Membership has its privileges. You can find out more at alabamacu.com. Member-owned and not-for-profit. It's a better way of banking. Alabama Credit Union, many locations around the state of Alabama, including the home office right here in Tuscaloosa. Again, alabamacu.com. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. I told you a good show today. Starts at 9:30 as far as our guests are concerned with my main man, Adam Amin from Fox Sports, one of the top play-by-play broadcasters in the country. Also the play-by-play voice for the Chicago Bulls on television, Chicago Bears preseason football. He's going to join us to talk some NFL and NBA at 9:30. Then at 10 o'clock, Ashley Priest-Johnston, Alabama Gymnastics head coach, for her weekly visit as the Crimson Tide is at home again tonight. And they're off to a great start this season. We'll visit with the coach at 10. And then at 10:30, it's the Auburn Report with Brett Pritchard. In between your phone calls on the First and Main Condos hotline in hour number 1, the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline in hour number 2. I see Corey and Trussell's already ready to go. Corey, we're going to get to you in just a moment. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and start them off with some TGIF headlines, Justin, on this Friday morning. Well, 2 weeks ago, then Alabama sophomore golfer Nick Dunlap played the first round of the American Express, a tournament that would change his life. Dunlap went on to win the event as an amateur and then turned professional. Yesterday, he made his pro debut at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am and shot a 4 over 76. It's different when it's your job. Golf's now a job for him, and it's going to be an adjustment. I'm expecting him to bounce back with a better round on Friday, but as I said, for right now, he goes into round 2 tied for last place after winning his last event as an amateur. There's been a lot of talk about Alabama football players going into the portal, of course, before Coach Saban retired, after he retired, and it's kind of gotten blown out of proportion. And that's what Kalen DeBoer talked about this week when he was down at the Senior Bowl. He said that he's really comfortable with the roster and where it's at. They're going to add some more to it, but he thinks there's a lot of good football players at Alabama, and he feels good about the roster. The NCAA handed down a 5-year suspension as part of a 15-year show cause order against former Alabama baseball coach Brad Bohannon on Thursday. The penalty effectively bans him from college coaching after he provided information to a gambler who who used it to make illegal wagers against the Crimson Tide. The NCAA and Alabama came to a negotiated resolution in the case that involved multiple level 1 and 2 violations, although Bohannon didn't participate in the investigation. The school was hit with 3 years of probation and a $5,000 fine. The gambler has pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice. Bohannon was cited for violating NCAA principles of honesty and sportsmanship when he provided information about an injury to a starting pitcher, to Bert Eugene Neff, on April 28, 2023, before Alabama played LSU. Neff used that information to make a bet against Alabama, which lost the game. He tried to make it for a lot bigger than it was taken for by the gambling agency, but that led to all kinds of problems, obviously. Speaking of SEC baseball, all 16 Southeastern Conference teams will compete in a single elimination baseball postseason tournament after the league expands next year with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. SEC officials announced the new baseball tournament format yesterday, after athletic directors approved the switch under the existing format. Only 12 of the SEC's 14 current members participate in a hybrid single-double elimination tournament over a 6-day period. Now, a lot of people are going to be against this. I'm for it. First of all, even now, seriously, you're going to let 12 teams in and let 2 sit at home? Some of them are going to play single elimination. Some are going to play double elimination. I like the single elimination. We have it in softball. Let all 16 teams in and play it. 16 against 1, 15 against 2, 14 against 3, 13 against 4, and so on, man. And I don't know, real quickly, Justin, do you with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, I'm a big fan of letting all 16 teams in and just playing a single elimination.
I like it too. I think it's going to provide that kind of March Madness that basketball has. I think it's going to be fun and draw more attention.
Yeah, and again, let everybody in, but you can't play double elimination with that many teams. Really, to me, if you're going to play a double elimination tournament, it doesn't need to be more than 8 teams, the way it used to be anyway. But for this year, the same format as always, with the 12 teams out of 14 making it. That will continue with the tournament, which takes place May 21st to 26th over in Hoover. Alabama women's basketball last night. Wow, Crimson Tide women got a little bit of payback, didn't they? As they took on Arkansas. It was Arkansas that came back from a big deficit to win over in Tuscaloosa just a couple of weeks ago, but they played last night, and Alabama used a huge second quarter against the Razorbacks, and this time they didn't let up. They were up 20 at the break, or 18 at the break, 43-25. They went on to win it 86-70. So a good win for Alabama on the road in SEC women's basketball. Of course, the Alabama men play tomorrow night at home against Mississippi State, and that's a rematch. The Tide's already won once over the Bulldogs, and they'll look to win twice as they take on the Bulldogs tomorrow night at Coleman Coliseum. So that's a look at some headlines, and we're off and running on the show. We're going to go ahead and get our first break in so we have plenty of time when we come back on the other side. And Corey, you hold tight, my friend. We're going to get to you over in Trussville. Anybody else that wants to call in, give us a ring on the First and Main Condos hotline at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. Adam Amin coming up at 9:30. It's the TGIF edition, which means we got all that great weekend music. We break away from the regular bumper music. We're going to some high energy weekend music. Friday's the best day of the week, in my opinion. We're headed into the weekend. Let's have some fun right here on the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. We'll be right back after this.
This season of Alabama football on Tide 100.9, brought to you by Birmingham Racecourse Casino. Just a few minutes away, where you can be a winner too.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by Guthrie's. America's original chicken finger restaurant is now an official partner of the Alabama Crimson Tide. For franchise information, visit Guthrie'sChicken.com. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we were joined by women's basketball senior Sarah Ashley Barker.
I love the challenges that come with it, but also the opportunity that comes with it too. I think every single day, it challenges me to be a better person. It challenges me to be a better teammate. It challenges me to understand that I can't be in my feelings when it comes into me making mistakes, and that I've got to worry about the next play. And honestly, it makes me worry less about myself and worry more about the team, because in this role, it's kind of like I want to help so many people get better. I want to show them the things that they can correct, or the things that they need to fix. But also me knowing that is like, I want to receive it too. I want them to tell me the things that I need to correct. I want them to get on to me if I mess up a defensive assignment. And so I think just being a leader for the team, but also having other leaders like Aaliyah and Loyal just goes along with it too, because it's not just me.
I'll have more in a moment.
Founded in Haleyville in 1965, Guthrie's Golden Fried Chicken Fingers has been family-owned and operated in Alabama for over 58 years. Like their famous signature dipping sauce, Guthrie's has been imitated but never duplicated. Using the family's original Southern fried chicken recipe, Guthrie's is still serving the best chicken fingers in the world. Just like you like them, fresh, hot, and fast. Guthrie's, America's original chicken finger restaurant, and now an official partner of the Alabama Crimson Tide. For franchise information, visit Guthrie'sChicken.com.
Join us tomorrow for men's basketball against Mississippi State. Our radio coverage will start at 6:30 across the network, with tip-off scheduled at 7:30 p.m. at Coleman Coliseum. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by Guthrie's. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Lots of sunshine today with a very pleasant afternoon. The high 68. Tonight fair with the low at 42. Tomorrow morning sunshine, clouds increasing by afternoon. The high 67. Much colder Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high at 50. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 46 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Back in working for the weekend, aren't we all? 9:13 here on the Gary Harris Show. And we're going to jump out on the First and Main Condos hotline here in just a moment and talk to Corey over in Trustful. I also want to mention to you that Alabama has a junior day coming up this weekend, and it's the first big junior day for Kalen DeBoer. I'm going to be running down some of the names that are going to be in here. It's an impressive list for 2025 and beyond. I'll get to that in just a moment because we didn't have a recruiting report this week, but we will run down the junior day information coming up here in just a moment. Right now, let's jump out on the First and Main Condos hotline, and that's where we find Corey. Corey, good morning. Did you get to hear Karen Johns?
I did, and I loved her interview. She gave a good explanation for reasons why Alabama can be good, and one of the main points she made was the battery. And even though I don't know much about Riley Valentine, I hope that she can be a good – I mean, I know she's not going to replace Allie Shipman and her experience and her leadership, but hopefully it can fill in the gap for what she was, because I would imagine she'd be the one that would do it. And what Jayla Torrance did in the offseason cannot be forgotten. And I would think, this is just my thinking, I would think Kayla Beaver would be the ace because she's a more experienced pitcher. Mm-hmm. So it could be a 1A, 1B with Beaver and Torrance. But that's going to be the key. You can have all the offense you want, but you have to have good pitching in order to make it to the SEC. And that's what won Alabama a lot of games, was the pitching. And hopefully that's what happens, because I've heard what Karen said was the offense is looking really good. Now we have to see it to believe it in games, but hopefully the pitching is what makes the difference.
Yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying, Corey, and I agree, but not 100%. Yeah, you want both, right? I mean, and you know, to be a dominant team, you want to have great pitching and timely great hitting and power. You know, that's kind of where it's at. But I think it's a little bit different. And you and I talked about this last year, and you called in a couple times frustrated with the lack of offense. No matter how good your pitching is, some of these teams, the way they're built and constructed offensively, they're going to touch you for runs. So I think that, you want to have frontline top-notch pitching, but you also have to understand that no matter how good your pitching is, some of these offenses are going to generate run production against you. So when you have, a great pitcher in the circle like Alabama had with Montana Fouts, I still don't think you can go out there every game and say, well, we're going to win 2-1 or 1-0. I don't think you can look at it like that anymore. Even with a terrific frontline pitcher, I think you have to say to yourself, we got to score runs against this team. They're going to score runs. We're going to have to, I know last year, with Tennessee's offense and some of those offenses, you've got to generate offensive production even if you have a great pitcher. And now, as we know too, Corey, you got to have a staff as well. You can't just rely on one pitcher or even two anymore. You need to have 3 or 4 pitchers that can throw, because you're going to have to use that many during the course of the season. So the game's evolved a lot from where it was 20 years ago when one great pitcher literally could carry you through a season. I mean, that's just the way that it was. Offenses weren't nearly as strong. The game was evolving. And from where it was then to where it's at now, when you're talking about college softball now east of the Mississippi, having been around and been established now for going on 30 years, the quality of play all over the country is, the travel ball and everything is just so much better than it once was. And even maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you had a dominant pitcher, a lot of these offenses just couldn't catch up to it, Corey. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, you could throw some of these pitchers that Alabama had out there and there were a lot of offenses that couldn't touch them. It's not that way anymore. It's just not. So you want to have great pitching. I'm not arguing with you there, but to think that just good pitching is going to take you where you want to go, I don't agree with that. Offensively, you've got to be able to score runs, and you've got to understand that how you look at pitching. I think Montana Fouts last year was probably just as dominant as she was her first year, but even in that 4-year span, people caught up to her, and she wasn't throwing as many shutouts or throwing as many 1 or 2 hitters, teams were scoring runs off of her. So, it's a different game now. And the way a good pitcher now against the top offense, if they hold them to 3 runs, I think they've done a pretty good job.
Well, I agree with you. I think the offense, we need to score more runs because that was the problem. It's been the problem the last 2 or 3 years. And I think with adding Caleb Rowe and the new hitting coach is going, I would hope make a big difference. Now, I'm not saying you have to do Oklahoma or something like that, but you just need to score runs to take pressure off your pitching staff, because I feel like a lot of times under Montana, as good as she was, I feel like she was under a lot of pressure to keep the scoring down. Because how many times have you seen or heard on the broadcast, whenever you get that insurance run or just up a few runs, you just feel more loose as a pitcher, and you don't feel like you have to throw it in the right spot every time. And then that's where mistakes can be made. And if we're up by 4 or 5 runs on a good team, something like that, you don't have to stress as much as a fan that even if they score, we know we can hit them back.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I'm with you 100% on that, Corey. I mean, yeah. I mean, as I just said, the way you view pitching now has to be viewed differently than it was just a few years ago even. And, you got to have some offense. But I'm with you after listening to Karen, and we'll get Murph on here soon too. I like the potential of this Alabama softball team. I really do, buddy.
How did you like the Bama basketball game in the second half? Because first half was horrible. I mean, 0 of 8 from 3. The just terrible. Eventually, in the second half, they turned it on. And what was key was the whole game, we only had 9 turnovers, and free throw shooting was good once again. And this is what's bizarre to me. How in the world has Mark Sears been left off the Wooden Award watch list is beyond me.
Yeah, it is to everybody. He's having a phenomenal year, averaging 20 a game. I don't know. That's why I don't get caught up in these awards that much anymore either. I mean, Mark Sears not to be on it, and that's foolish. But to answer your question about the second half, 58 points against Georgia is incredible. Yeah, enjoyed it a lot.
Do you think Alabama has a strong possibility with the games remaining to win the SEC regular season?
Boy, I think it's looking better by the game. I mean, I went into the season thinking they were a good team, but I didn't think they were an SEC championship caliber team, but the more I watch them, I think they can win it. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but they're a serious candidate right now, which speaks again to how good Nate Oates is at being able to replenish a roster after all he lost from last year. It's phenomenal, really. It's really, really phenomenal. Hey, Corey, great phone call, man. I got to get to some other callers here in this segment, but good to hear from you.
Good to talk to you, Gary. Roll Tide.
Thank you, Corey. All right, let's see. Next up, it looks like we got Franny and then Lewis. Hey, good morning, Franny.
How you doing, Gary?
Doing well, thank you.
Congratulations to the basketball teams and everybody doing so well, even gymnastics too. But I had a baseball question for you.
Okay.
I heard the 3-year probation and $5,000 fine, but do you know what the probation entails?
It doesn't entail any scholarship losses. That's the big thing.
Okay.
I think it more or less, is to let Alabama understand that if there are any violations while you're on probation, it could get serious. But as far as outside of just the fine and the stigma for being on probation, I don't think it impacts the team that much. It doesn't impact them as far as recruiting or visits or, now I do think, I say that I think they have to explain, and I'd have to read the whole thing, but I think they have to explain to any player that they recruit and have on campus exactly what happened in regards to the gambling situation. So there are some administrative things that go along with that and some educational things that go along with that and things you have to explain to your, people that you're recruiting in regards to what happened. So there are some things, but as far as the number of players that you can recruit, the scholarship, the 11.7, all that, it's all like everybody else.
And there's no postseason ban.
No postseason ban. No postseason ban. So there's some things they got to work around, but it doesn't impact the team as far as what they can accomplish.
Okay, and I had one other question for you. When they go to 16 teams, I heard they're going to go to single elimination. Do you like that? I do like it. Just talked about it earlier this morning. In fact, I do. I think now it's worked out well with softball, and I know a lot of people are dead against it. But this deal they got now where you have 14 teams and 12 of them make it, and then you start out single elimination, then you merge into double elimination. I'm not a fan of that. If you're going to have that many teams in, I'm like, let everybody in. So this will be 16 teams. You'll play 16 against 1, 15 against 2, 14 against 3, 13 against 4, right on through. And you'll go from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2, and you'll crown a champion. Yeah, I like it better. I think that if you're going to, like now, if you're one of the 2 teams that don't make it, I mean, that's almost like, I understand you didn't, but either have 8 or all 14 to me. And, now we have 12. So, I like it. I like the single elimination, especially heading into NCAA regionals. You play a lot of games over there, and I don't care what people say. Sometimes you can tax your pitching a little bit. So I think this will work out better. It's going to be like a mini World Series almost. A little bit, yeah. With all the good teams that we've got in the league. Mm-hmm. All right, have a good day. Thank you, Franny. Good to hear from you. All right, let's keep it going, and let's get to Lewis. Good morning, Lewis.
Good morning, Gary. Hey, Corey covered part of what I wanted to talk to you about, but could you believe that comeback against Georgia? I've never seen anything. They didn't squeak that game out. They dominated them at the end of that game.
Sure did. Wound up winning it going away a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, they did, Gary. And I don't know if you've covered this yet. I was just now able to tune in on my app. But would you talk a little bit about Mississippi State and what we got to do and how you see that game coming up? And you know what? We just beat some Bulldogs. Let's beat some more Bulldogs. Roll Tide, Gary. Let's go. Yeah, thank you, Lewis. Mississippi State's a tough team, and they had a game this week at Ole Miss that they could have won, and they didn't. And Alabama beat them over in Starkville, and that was a great win for Alabama because at that point in the year, early in the conference schedule, a road game in Starkville, I think a lot of people thought Mississippi State would win that game. I thought they had a good chance to win it, and for Alabama to go over there and win a close game was huge. And Mississippi State helped them out by missing free throws, just like they helped out other Ole Miss the other night. That's one thing that really hurts Mississippi State in close games is they've had a propensity to miss their free throws. But they're a good team, and they're capable of coming in here and winning if Alabama doesn't play well offensively. And I know I've talked so much about the defense. I get that. And I think Alabama's getting better on defense. But in this game, I think Alabama
Mississippi State's going to have a hard time keeping up with Alabama if Alabama's making shots. They just are. They're not built that way offensively. So I think if Alabama is hitting its shots, they're going to win the game at home. If they have an off night, Mississippi State's capable of winning. Particularly, Mississippi State's powerful inside. And, if they get Alabama in foul trouble, we don't know what the status is of Nick Pringle. I know Coach Oates is going to meet with the media later this morning. So maybe we'll have, feeling, or not a feeling, maybe Coach Oates will tell us whether or not he's going to play tomorrow night. He sat out, didn't make the trip to Athens. And, I think that's something with his future because, we heard Coach Oates say after the game in Athens, he's got to make a decision talking about Pringle, whether or not he wants to be a part of the program going forward. So we'll see what happens there. I know that Mississippi State, like I said, is capable. And it's going to be a tough game tomorrow night over Coleman Coliseum. But I like Alabama to win it. I do, at home. I mean, you look at Alabama's track record with Nate Oates as the head coach in SEC home games, and it's been phenomenal. And I think they'll get another one tomorrow night against the Bulldogs. All right, it is 9:27 here on the Gary Harris Show, and one of our most popular guests coming up next. He is back with us this morning, Adam Amin from Fox Sports. We're going to talk NFL, NBA, and more with one of the top play-by-play broadcasters in the country. Also, before we hit the break, I do want to remind you the YMCA of Tuscaloosa. Yes, the no joining free January is over. We're into February, but still, any time is a great time to sign up at the YMCA. Start working toward getting fit for summer now. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa, 2300 13th Street downtown. We're back with Adam Amin and more great weekend music. Chicago will be coming up next here on the Gary Harris Show.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages.
We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Visit PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representations made that the legal services provided by Patterson Comer is greater than any other legal services performed by any other lawyer.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free. Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Los Tarascos with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport.
Did you miss any episode on Tide 100.9? Don't worry. All of our shows can be found on Spotify and Apple Music and on demand on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:29. Actually, just turned over to 9:30. Perfect timing for Adam Amin from Fox Sports. Back with us this week and just in time to preview the Super Bowl and talk some NBA and other topics if we can get to them. Good morning, Adam. How are you?
Doing well, my friend. How are you?
Thanks for joining us. I tell you what, it was a rocky road at time for both teams, but the two teams that a lot of people pegged to be in the Super Bowl before the season started are the two teams that have wound up there, and that is San Francisco and Kansas City. Really exciting playoffs on both the AFC side and the NFC side, but in the end, two, I guess, of the what we call NFL blue bloods for this day and time advance and survive and make it to Las Vegas. What do you think of this matchup?
I mean, it should be great. We know that Kansas City is at least playing some of its better football at this time of year, and that's obviously what you want to be doing. It was not the easiest road, as you said, Gary, to get to this point for the Chiefs. And then for the 49ers, they've been one of the best teams in the league. I think you and I talked about that a month ago, right around the playoffs starting, where, the confidence level of that group has always been very high. And they've been as consistent. I've said most of the year, at least the second half of the year, that they're the least flawed team in football, maybe this side of the Ravens. And some of the Ravens' flaws showed up. You know, their lack of offensive consistency, a bad second half, really, offensively against the Chiefs. But, you know, the San Francisco has been the least flawed team for the second half of the year. So I think they're playing very well. The Niners are right now. I thought that second half against Detroit kind of went back to what I saw late in the regular season when they had to deal with some adversity. The loss to Baltimore on Christmas, kind of having to bang through some injury issues, having to come back at some points. Like I think the adversity that they faced late in the year, the football adversity that they faced, was probably good for them come playoff time. And they're playing their best football and very consistent football right now. Kansas City has not been as consistent, and that scares me a little bit if I'm a Kansas City fan. But they're playing very well, and they still have arguably the best pure football player in the league in Patrick Mahomes right now, arguably the best player in the league right now. And he played at a very high level for a couple of playoff games to get him to this point. So I'm excited for it. It's still a great matchup. I know America's matchup was probably closer to Detroit and Baltimore, or maybe Detroit and Kansas City, but I feel like we're in for a good one.
Yeah, let's look back at those championship games because, a lot of people starting the AFC felt like this was Baltimore's year, and they had it at home against the Chiefs. You know, Lamar Jackson playing at a high level, and defensively, I mean, you look at the final score, you would say they did enough, but, Lamar is the face of that franchise, and, he did not make as many plays probably as he needed. Well, obviously as many as he needed to make. He had the one terrible interception. Of course, obviously, Flowers, the fumble when he was about to cross. But if you're Baltimore, you have to be incredibly frustrated because it seemed like it was your time and you didn't get it done. Does that fall more on the quarterback, the head coach Harbaugh, the defense? What do you attribute that loss to?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a handful of plays in a micro sense in one half. The Flowers play, obviously, was one of the plays that blew up the whole thing. And it was Lamar's just least intelligent half. Like, he's played such great football all season long, and he just made some bad decisions. Like really bad throws. Some of the pick that you're talking about was dreadful. I couldn't even believe he threw it. Mm-hmm. So there were a few plays like that stuck out, and oftentimes that's what determines games. I think that's what killed Detroit, too. I think there's this idea that the philosophy of the Lions, or the philosophy of how Baltimore has built its team and its offense in particular around Lamar, like I hear all this stuff about, their philosophies is what got them, beat. It's really not. The philosophies are what got them there in the first place. You have to still execute plays, and I think we have a tendency to try to explain away an entire season's worth of. I feel bad calling it failure because I don't think it's failure to lose in a conference championship game. I get if you want to use that term, I understand it because the goal is to get to the Super Bowl and to win it. So I guess in that sense, it's a failure. I get this sense that people want to write off a team's failure by looking at the biggest picture possible, and that makes sense. I understand why human beings do that, but when it comes down to it, the philosophies of their coaching staffs, about their offenses, about how they play the game, is what got those teams to that point. But you have to execute plays, and when you fumble the ball at the 1 yard line, when Bill Belichick has said for years, don't reach the ball out on the goal line. Just don't put the ball in harm's way. That's an execution play. It's a mental mistake on one play that shifts the game completely. That game shifted on that play. It's as simple as that. That game shifted on that play. The Lions didn't lose because Dan Campbell's too aggressive on fourth down. That's not how this works. The Lions lost because they had 2 drops and they had like one play where they should have converted and they didn't. And yeah, it's a gamble, and Campbell said as much, is that we gambled and we lost, but it's not philosophical reasons that these teams lost games. It's tangible, physical reasons on specific game-changing, momentum-shifting plays. And when you do that, like red zone turnovers kill teams. Turnovers kill teams in general. It's the most telling stat in football because on average, teams are going to score about a little more than half the time. They're going to score touchdowns about half the time. And if you lose possessions in what is on average a 12-possession game for a team, you're usually going to get about 12 possessions in a contest. Then if you lose possessions, you're not going to have as many opportunities to score the NFL average. So that's what ends up happening. I don't think it was anything philosophical on those teams' part. I think it had a lot to do with just individual execution.
And on the NFC side, since you mentioned Dan Campbell, 24/7 at the half, everything is going the Lions' way. I hear you, and I agree, but I do look back at what Nick Bosa said because I agree with him too. After the 49ers got a field goal, it's 24-10. The Lions are in position to kick a field goal, and I understand you still have to execute the field goal.
Right.
But it would have, it was going to be a 42-yarder or something like that, which you expect to make in the NFL. If you kick it there, you go back up 3 scores. In my opinion, Adam, I don't know. You just kind of feel like you're on course to win that game. They don't make it. Of course, you get the Ayuk catch off the face mask and what have you, and then the Gibbs fumble, and it's a whole different game. I thought in that particular instance. And understand, like you said, that's who he is. That's who he's been all year. That's why the players love him. But if you kick the field goal there, I think the outcome might be different.
I do agree with that. I have a tendency to agree with that as well because I look, my philosophy is always take a 3-score lead. Always take a 3-score lead. Anytime you can go up 17 points, you do it because it takes 3 full trips for another team to, at the very least, be back in the game to tie it or to perhaps take lead, whatever it is. To me, the philosophy has always been in the modern era of the NFL when you have X amount of possessions and this type of offense on across the league where the league average in scoring is up around 22, 23 points a game. So even if you only kick field goals on every possession, or again, let's run through some of the math here. So say it's a 12-possession game for a team, and as we said, NFL average, you're minimum going to score a field goal about half the time. So what is that, 18 points? If you add in the factors of the times you're probably going to score a touchdown, you're probably looking at closer to 25 to 28 points. That's above league average. NFL average is somewhere between 21 and 22 points. So to me, if you get past league average, you have a very high probability of winning games. And if you can take opportunities to be up 3 possessions where you force teams to have to execute at a better than 50% rate to score at least a field goal, you're probably going to be in very good position to win games. So for me, yes, I do agree that in that sense, maybe philosophy hurt you, but if you're going to tell me that momentum is super important in the NFL, which George Kittle says it is, and I wholeheartedly believe in sports, momentum is a real thing. It's not a quantifiable thing, but it is a tangible thing because you see how plays affect the attitude and effort of players when they feel like they have a chance to be in a game. I think that's a tangible thing. If momentum is a real thing, so is looking at a kicker like Michael Badgley, who isn't particularly great, was a mid-season signee for Detroit. And Dan Campbell is saying, well, I don't trust my kicker, which is a perfectly reasonable thing that announcers, analysts, pundits have been saying for years to justify not kicking field goals. And now all of a sudden in a playoff game, it's not justifiable. I get why he's not kicking. I wish he would have some confidence, or at least the kicker would say, hey, I need to go make this kick. Because if you do, you go up 3 scores in a, on average, 12-possession game. I wish they would have kicked the field goal and tried to go up, 3 scores at that point. But if momentum is real, so are the stats for a kicker who's not your number one kicker. He wasn't the kicker at the start of the season, and he wasn't particularly good from distance from 40+. So it's not an automatic thing. If your touchdown opportunity there is is 3 quarters or whatever it is, for 75%, and the kicker's average, at that portion of the field this year in a minimal sample size was about 45%, what are you going to go with, right? So it's not as diabolical or as silly or as far-fetched to not kick the field goal there. So that's why I have a hard time buying into some of the logical fallacies that people have a tendency to dive into. But you and I, in this particular case, are in agreement. basically it comes down to me to say, hey, you're an NFL kicker, make the damn field goal.
Right. You're paid to do one job at that league level. Yeah. You got to make it. All right. Let's talk about some of these coaching hires because, boy, they have been interesting. It's been an interesting cycle, and some of the guys who aren't coaching is just as interesting as some of the ones that are. But let's start with Harbaugh. You can kind of see this one coming with the way college football is headed. He goes out on top, leading Michigan to a national championship, and he takes that Chargers job, which appears to be a really good fit. Herbert, the quarterback, that's a talented roster. He's got a lot of experience in the state of California coaching college and NFL football. Again, you never know until these things play out. But on the surface, to me, this looks like a really good hire for the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. What do you think?
I think so, too. I think it was the timing is right for everybody, right? And listen, I've contended that Jim was a really good college coach, partially because of how he operated in the NFL at the time, a decade plus ago. The common theme was, well, he wears on you after a certain amount of time because he's got a certain personality. He's got this kind of interesting, aloof, style of how he deals with kids. He deals with 18 to 24-year-olds. And when you're dealing with professionals, it may not have the same amount of longevity as it did when he was at Michigan for what? How long was he in Michigan? Almost a decade, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I want to say
9 years.
8 or 9 years.
Yeah, 8 or 9 years. So, guys love college. His players seemingly, on average, love the guy and have said great things about playing for Harbaugh. I'm buddies with Jake Butt, the former tight end. Remember, he got hurt in the Orange Bowl and went on to play for the Broncos for a few years and play in the NFL. And now does a great job as an analyst for Big Ten Network here out of the Midwest in Chicago. He's always spoken incredibly highly of playing for Jim Harbaugh and has the funny stories. Oh, he did this, or he orders milk at dinner, but he's got this weird saying, or whatever it may be. He's got his quirks like anybody else does, and they're a little strange, but relative to other people. But the more I'm around football coaches, both college and NFL, in the last 15 years of my life, they're all weird. They're all weird in some form or fashion. Like, you just have to have a certain personality to be in this job anyway. I think, the mark on Harbaugh was always that his personality will wear on you after a while. And maybe that's going to be the case in the NFL. But I also think seeing how the world has changed at the college level with NIL and kind of seeing it, you're essentially dealing in some ways with professionals now when they're 18 to 24 years old, right, Gare?
Absolutely.
So I think I feel like that's almost been a nice education for Jim Harbaugh in a sense. And his philosophy of coaching and the way he's coached players hasn't ever really changed. He's always kind of been the same guy, and it's always been fairly productive. It's always been fairly successful. I think in shorter stints in the NFL, because like I said, I think some of the personality quirks can wear on professionals. They're not going to buy into the same rah-rah style that the college kids will, because they've been through all that. They're not there for that. They're there to get paid and to play and to do their jobs. It is officially their jobs now. But with the way that college coaching has changed with Michigan and the timing being right, probably with some of the investigations and with some of the pressures that come with being a college coach at that level now, and obviously winning it all, that's a pretty good way to walk out. It's a pretty good way to go back to the NFL. And I think the Chargers needed a boost. I think they needed I feel bad saying this about Brandon Staley. I think Brandon was a little in over his head in some ways for some of the moments, whether it was the blown playoff game, whether it was, that handful of blown games, 2 handfuls of blown games in the NFL the last few years. The Chargers had as many of those as just about any team in the league. I think, he was just a little over his skis. And I think for Harbaugh to have the type of success he's had at both levels, obviously he's coached in a Super Bowl with San Francisco. He's won a national championship now. He's an NFL guy at heart. I think all of this is kind of timed out very well for him. I think the Chargers needed it. I think Harbaugh needed it. I think it's a good marriage, and we'll see how it plays out now.
In Atlanta, it really appeared that Arthur Blank had zeroed in on Bill Belichick. And, of course, Belichick, when he, comes in, he wants to run the show. And some of the Falcons front office brass didn't see it that way. In the end, they go with Raheem Morris, former head coach with the Bucs, former interim coach with the Falcons, defensive coordinator, with the Rams. And, of course, has coached on the offensive side of the ball a lot. Did the Falcons get it right here?
I mean, this, right or not, I'm not sure how to judge that, but I'm going to say this by preceding it with, like, listen, I'm biased. I think Raheem Morris is one of the sharpest guys around. I'm a big fan of his. I like him a lot as a guy, and we don't really root for teams in this job. We root for people. Raheem Morris is somebody I root for, admittedly. Like, I just think he's a really good communicator. I think he's a really positive person. I think he's done a lot of things in these jobs. Like you said, he's coached both sides of the ball. He's been a special teams coach. He's been through multiple organizations that have had different levels of success and failure. I think he's seen a lot. And I did a lot of Rams games this year. I did 3 or 4 Rams games. So I saw Raheem a lot this year when he was the DC, and last year too. And I've always walked away from my conversations with him feeling like he's a great communicator. He would rib me about some of the stats that I would come in with and ask about. I wouldn't assume things based on those stats, but I would ask about them. And naturally, when he would hear the numbers, he'd go, "And you numbers geeks are trying to get us fired." And I was like, "Oh, come on now, Raheem. That's not what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to understand things." And he goes, "I know. I'm just giving you a hard time." And I just always appreciated how he communicated. I feel like guys really gravitated towards him. And then based on the job he did this past year in Atlanta, Los Angeles, beg your pardon. I was really impressed. That was a very young Los Angeles Ram defense. They had rookies at every level. They had young players at every level, guys that are only in their second or third year. There were some veterans in the linebacking core that had moved positions to linebacker recently. Like, it was basically a bunch of young kids and Aaron Donald. And obviously, Aaron Donald makes you a very good defensive coordinator in general, because he's just going to be a game wrecker, once every 7 plays when you need him to be. He's going to come up with something huge. But I was really impressed with how he took such a young group, had patience with them, molded them, shaped them, taught them in a way that was chronologically sound at the NFL level. They gave him leeway. Granted, the Rams this year were kind of in a competitive rebuild at the beginning of the season. That was the term that was used for them. And they ended up, because they grew at a really nice rate, both offensively and defensively, they ended up having a really good season, on both sides of the ball. And Raheem had a lot to do with that. So obviously the leeway was there. The patience was there inherently with how their season was expected to go. But he delivered, and so did Sean McVay. So I think they both did an excellent job, and I think Raheem's earned this. I've said for a couple of years, I hope he gets another opportunity, because I really do find him to be a very good communicator. Obviously, he knows that organization a little bit. I think he was there when Dan Quinn got fired. That's who he took over for a few years back, before he ended up in Los Angeles. And his stint in Tampa Bay as the head coach wasn't very good. But some guys, they're not ready, or the situation isn't good, or a combination of both when they get their first opportunity. And they have to earn their way back. And not everybody earns their way back. So I give Raheem a lot of credit for earning his way back to this point.
Absolutely. Adam Amin with us. All right, Adam, we're going to get up against the clock here in a minute, so I want to go ahead and run through these other coaching hires. And just a quick synopsis from you on whether or not you think these coaching hires are going to work out. You mentioned Quinn. Let's start with Dan Quinn in Washington. He leaves the Cowboys to go play for the arch rival, the Washington Commanders, and took a team to a Super Bowl, which already kind of makes him stand out. But this hiring just almost feels like Washington couldn't get a coach, and they settled on Dan Quinn. How do you see this hire?
If that's who you settle on, that's pretty good, I think.
I agree.
But yeah, I know they wanted Ben Johnson. Right. And a lot of people want Ben Johnson, and I'm happy for him staying in Detroit. But he's going to get a head coaching job at some point, and I respect that he's waiting for the right opportunity. And for him, Washington wasn't it. I think for Dan Quinn, again, not everybody gets a second chance to be a head coach. So I think he had to take the job that was offered to him. but I don't think it's a bad hire for Washington. They need help on defense. They were the worst defense in the NFL this year. They fired Jack Del Rio in November, and they with all the talent they had on defense, and I know they made all those trades with Sweat and Young, but they have a lot of talent, and they just played horribly. So they needed a defensive-minded head coach. It's good to get one from the division rival. I like the hire. I get that it wasn't the first choice, but it's not a bad final choice.
The Titans go to Cincinnati and pluck Brian Callahan. Change the philosophy here from a defensive-minded coach to an offensive-minded coach.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it works out because I don't know who that offense is going to have. Where's Derrick Henry going to go? Who's your quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Levis? Is it going to be Willis? Is it going to be somebody else? Are you going to be able to maintain some of the pieces that you have? I know the receiving core is still fairly young, and so is some of the pieces on the offensive line, but that's a real work in progress, and he's not going into a great situation.
The Raiders looked around, but decided to stay with Antonio Pierce.
I think for an organization that prides itself so much on its history and on its past to try to drive into its future, I think it was a great hire. And I think the job he did with that roster, with having a young quarterback often, Aiden O'Connell running the show, and just all the changes at quarterback and the dealings they had from the start of the year where Josh Jacobs was frustrated and everything bad that was happening in Vegas. For him to stabilize the second half of the year, and I think he went 5-4. That's a hell of a job, and it's the right guy to hire.
And of course, in New England, everybody knew this was coming with Jared Mayo. It seems like he's ready for the job. This is a situation where they're transitioning, but yet he's going to keep a lot of the Patriot principles in place, and at the same time, as he said, makes a lot of changes too, beginning with how he handles the media.
Yeah, it's just going to be a different style and a similar philosophy, and that's okay, and a guy who understands whatever the Patriot way is. If you're not going to have Bill Belichick anymore, this is not a bad hire organizationally, and based on everything you hear from old teammates, Tom Brady in particular, they're very high on Gerard Mayo. So I'm a fan of the hire. I think it's a good hire. I want to see how it's going to go. Just because it's a good hire based off of the context and circumstances doesn't mean it's going to be successful, because that's still a roster that needs some overhaul. And are they going to draft a quarterback? And how is a first-year head coach who's been mainly and only a defensive guy, he's a linebacker, obviously, and has been a linebackers coach for them, how is that going to play out? Because you still got to make, the head coaching hire is important. Raheem Morris has to hire a very good offensive coordinator in Atlanta. Gerard Mayo's got to hire a very good offensive coordinator in New England. If you're not going to make a change, if you're going to stick with McDaniels, fine. But you got to make sure that the play calling is where it needs to be, because some of the head coaching hires are good. The staff is really, really important too, and I think that's going to be big in New England. And
Seattle and Carolina both go young coordinators.
I'm interested by the Seattle hire to go from the youngest to the oldest to the youngest head coach, and that Baltimore defense was really good. I mean, they held Kansas City to 17. They did their job in the championship game, and they did their job all season long. It's a great defense. He coached it well. I think it's a good hire there too. Again, we'll see how it plays out, because what's the personnel going to look like? I think Carolina is Carolina, man. They're reaching. Nobody wanted that job. No top tier candidate really wanted that job. Ben Johnson is from Charlotte and is from North Carolina. Didn't really want to go there for obvious reasons. But it's not a good organization. Dave Canales may never get another opportunity again. He interviewed well. I'm a fan of his. I think he's a respected guy who stuck out a little bit like a sore thumb in Tampa Bay. I just didn't kind of fit in with the personality of everybody else. But maybe that personality is suited to be a head coach. We'll find out together in what I'm sure is going to be a topsy-turvy year for them, too. Yeah, and hopefully Bryce Young will be able to develop under Canals very well. All right, we're just about out of time. Real quickly, I just want to ask you, it's the NBA as well as anybody, how in the world did the Lakers go into Boston last night without LeBron, without AD, and beat the Celtics? I mean, that just makes no sense. Austin Reeves made shots, man. You got to make shots in this league, and on nights where you don't make shots, it's not too far-fetched to lose. Even when you're a team that's barely lost at home, you've been arguably the most consistent team in the Eastern Conference. But nights like that in the NBA happen. I think it's more magnified on national TV, but nights like that do happen. You just give a lot of credit to the Lakers. I mean, that's a group that should be better than it is. They just I saw them last week. The Bulls played out there in Los Angeles, and I was just surprised at how, just out of sorts they look at times. And LeBron still looks great. I'll say this. AD and LeBron being out was so rare. Those guys have not missed a lot of games this year relative to past seasons. So if they can stay healthy and the rest of this group, which is often the case around AD and LeBron, if the rest of the group plays well, I think they can be fine. We saw what they did as a 7 seed last year in the playoffs. I don't think they should be slept on at any point, especially with how well LeBron has played overall this year.
Time flies, Adam. Great stuff. Maybe better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Lots of sunshine today with a very pleasant afternoon. The high 68. Tonight fair with the low at 42. Tomorrow morning sunshine, clouds increasing by afternoon. The high 67. Much colder Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high at 50. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 46 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama. On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, thanks to Adam Amin, man. Boy, that guy's good. All right, that's going to wrap up the first hour. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. The Cure, Friday I'm in Love. Our first hour getaway song is going to get us out of here. Hour number 2 is coming up. We'll lead it off with gymnastics with Alabama head coach Ashley Priest Johnston. And then we'll also have the Auburn Report. Brett Pritchard, more of your phone calls as well. Gary Harris Show, the TGIF edition rolls on.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after hours.
We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Visit PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representations made that legal services provided by Patterson Comer is greater than any other legal services performed by any other lawyer.
The Alabama Securities Commission protects you from financial fraud. Anyone asking you for investment money must be licensed. You're careful with your money. Fraudsters aren't. Before you invest, call our hotline at 1-800-222-1253 to verify the licensing of the person making an offer and the product. Don't lose your hard-earned money. Learn to protect yourself at asc.alabama.gov. Paid for by the Investor Protection Trust and brought to you by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Brian Fenley.
Coaching additions and finalizing of staffs for NFL teams starting to happen here. A lot of action in that world. And according to multiple outlets, Liam Cohen is in the negotiation phase with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be their next offensive coordinator. Multiple outlets also saying that the Titans have their defensive coordinator and their new offensive coordinator. On the OC side, it's going to be Nick Holst. Holst was the Jaguars pass game coordinator. And on the DC end, it's Denard Wilson. He comes over from the Baltimore Ravens, where he was their secondary coach. Theo Epstein ups with the Boston Red Sox ownership group, where he will be a senior advisor. Last night in the NBA, Lakers with no LeBron James, no Anthony Davis. They go into Boston and one up the Celtics 114-105.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course
everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Paramount.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
A Tuscaloosa bar is permanently closing after 20 years as an anchor of downtown's Temerson Square district, owners announced Wednesday. Alabama's Ross recovery specialists are celebrating the grand opening of a new community center for people with substance use disorders on 18th Street in Tuscaloosa. And the Alabama Crimson Tide remains on top of the SEC after the men's basketball team came back to beat Georgia in a second-half surge last night. For the rest of these stories and much more, get connected at TuscaloosaThread.com.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Here we go, hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show, the TGIF edition for Friday, February 2, 2024. Gary Harris, Justin Johnson with you for another hour, and we're going to get it started here in just a moment with Alabama Gymnastics coach Ashley Johnson. This hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you by Patterson Comer, attorneys at law, Paul Patterson and Mike Comer, feet on the ground in West Alabama. I think that's important when you need a personal injury attorney. Paul Patterson's in Tuscaloosa at 205-345-1000. Mike Comer's in Northport at 205-759-3939. And remember, the commitment to serve our clients does not stop at the end of the workday. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of services performed by other lawyers.
And Coach Ashley Johnson in for her weekly visit here on Alabama Gymnastics. And after a great meet at Florida last week, Alabama looks to keep it rolling tonight at home against Kentucky, 7:30 Central Time on the SEC Network inside Coleman Coliseum, the Be the Change meet. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. I know you're doing well because this team, boy, they just continue to perform at a high level. Before we look ahead to tonight, let's look back at last week. You go into Florida and you score a 197.575, highlighted by the rare perfect 10 on the vault from Lily Hudson. What a meet for Alabama last Friday night on the road.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've gained just a lot of valuable experiences over these last couple of weeks. And, of course, last week getting to compete at Florida, really being in some tough moments and seeing our team rally and create and build momentum and be able to execute at a really high level to come out with progress in our score and also a win. All of those things are huge confidence builders for us as we move forward.
Yeah, and you move forward to tonight and back at home where it's always a great atmosphere. The Be the Change meet against Kentucky, 7:30 tonight on the SEC Network.
That's right. We're really looking forward to our Be the Change meet tonight. This really started back during my time as a gymnast under Sarah and David Patterson, and they always spoke about just being a champion in the community. And so I really felt that it was really important to prioritize being a champion in the community for our team now. And I'm so proud of our ladies and how they've invested their time in giving back to the community. Every week, actually, they serve an hour of their time investing in different businesses, schools, and just again, helping to be difference makers in our community. So I'm excited about what they're doing. I'm proud of them for how they're using their platform to think about things beyond gymnastics, because that's ultimately what's going to help prepare them to step into the real world after their 4 years is over here.
Let me ask you about the opponent, Kentucky. Tell us about the Wildcats and their squad. Coach? We lost Coach. I don't know what happened, but Justin will get it right back up. The phone gremlins, I like to call them. They do rear their ugly head from time to time. But we'll get Coach right back on here and pick up our conversation on Alabama Gymnastics again tonight, 7:30 inside Coleman Coliseum. Get out and support this team. They are fantastic, unbeaten on the season. Did have the one tie against Arkansas, but everything else on the schedule so far has been a W. And that one just died immediately. So I don't know. But anyway, Justin trying to get Coach back on. Because we need to finish out this interview. I think he's got her back here. He's He's trying to figure it out there, but we'll get her back on and continue our conversation on Alabama gymnastics with the head coach of the Crimson Tide. I hope that's what we can do. In the meantime, I'll run through this. All right, we got her back. Coach, the phone gremlin's got us there, I guess.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
Well, I don't know either, but I was going to ask you about the opponent tonight, Kentucky, and get you to give us, the scouting report on the Wildcats and their squad.
Of course. Kentucky is a really talented team. They're very capable. They've been on the rise for the past few years and have been at the national championship, and so we're expecting them to really bring their A game and be a tough team tonight. But that's great for us. It's great preparation, be able to see the best of the best. They're ranked number 3 right now. So, again, we know what we're up against, and we also know that we've got to keep the focus on our preparation and what we can control.
You know, we've talked a lot this year about the depth of your squad, and you've worked new gymnasts in and out of the lineup. For tonight, what is your strategy in this meet at home against Kentucky as far as your lineup?
You know, every week we put the best 6 up on each event. And in order to do that, we've got to kind of look at the bigger picture of what makes sense from week to week and helping to manage each athlete in the best way that we can. And so we're thankful that we've got a really good squad ready to go tonight, a lot of competition for those lineup spots. And so we're looking to see them come into even starting in warm-up and really dialing in and being brave about bringing the changes that they've worked on in the gym, bringing that into competition. And it's tough to do that. When you're the only one out there, sometimes you feel like you're on an island when you're up on that event. And it's important to use your mental preparation to be able to be confident and step in and go big in some pretty big moments. So they're prepared, they're ready, and we're really excited for tonight.
Of course, the record would say that you're obviously pleased with where you're at, but in terms of as a way a coach views it, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Is this team coming along at the pace that you expected and wanted it to? Where are you at in terms of where you'd hope to be at this point in the season? Has the production matched your expectations, or is that even a fair question? It may not be a good question to ask, but are you where you want to be at this point?
We're progressing really well. I'm proud of the growth this team has made. Coming into this year, I knew this was a really talented team and that they were capable of beating anybody in the country once they kind of hit their stride. And so I think physically we knew that this was a talented team, but where I've seen the most growth and the most initiative is how they've invested in their culture. And I really believe that's the difference maker. When you've got a team that wholeheartly believes in each other and has each other's back and is willing to do above and beyond even what they're asked to do, that's the type of team I'm so excited about, and that's what we've got here. And so it's neat to see week by week each individual athlete making their own breakthroughs in their preparation and in their journey. And so we're progressing well. We've still got more to do. We've still got more things that we need to overcome and challenges we need to step into. But I think we're at a really good point for this point in the season.
And for tonight, it's another opportunity for Alabama to prove it's got the best fans in the country, not only for your squad, but I know also the opponent always looks so forward to coming to Coleman Coliseum and experiencing the special home atmosphere. So another opportunity tonight for the fans to pack it out.
You're right. It's so much fun to go out there and compete in Coleman. And I always say, when our fans come into the building, even if they don't fully understand the scores or how it all works, I want them to be able to leave at the end of the night knowing that they had a blast, they want to come back, and that they were inspired. Our ladies, they work so hard. They're amazing students, amazing gymnasts, amazing community difference makers, and so I'm just so thankful for how our community supports them. And we're just looking forward to a really fun performance, really fun environment tonight.
All right, Coach, final question for you. Just about every time, talk to Coach at Alabama, it's hard we don't do it often, but I'm going to ask you, and I know he's been busy. Have you had a chance to meet Kalen DeBoer yet?
I've gotten to meet his wife.
Okay.
And she is just amazing, was able to attend the press conference, and we're just really looking forward to having the DeBoers here. He seems just like the perfect fit, and I can't wait to support him, to be a part of this new era of Alabama football. And I know all the coaches really band together and support each other, and I'm really looking forward to having them here.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck tonight against the Wildcats.
Thank you so much. Roll Tide.
All right, Ashley Johnston, Alabama gymnastics coach, breaking it down. Alabama, Kentucky Tide, Be the Change meet, 7:30 on the SEC Network in Tuscaloosa, and really everywhere that the SEC Network is available. But the best way to experience and enjoy the meet is to get out there tonight and watch the team. All right, it's 12 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock, hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show. Back to phone calls in the next segment. If you want to give us a ring, we're open for them. First time we've been guest-free in a while now on the show. 205-342-9904. That's the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline, 205-342-9904. And as I promised early at the top of the show, we're going to get into this big junior day coming up for Kalen DeBoer and Alabama football. Kalen DeBoer has been everywhere these first couple of weeks on the job, but he'll settle into Tuscaloosa this weekend. And the Crimson Tide will welcome some of the top high school prospects in the country to campus this weekend. We'll break that down for you next, right here on the TGIF edition of the Gary Harris Show. As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special, Monday through Boulevard West. Krispy Kreme is open 7 days a week. To see our complete donut, coffee, and espresso menu, visit our website at KrispyKremeTuscaloosa.com. Krispy Kreme, hot now and anytime.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadways.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside. And if you can't safely move over, please slow down.
Visit DriveSafeAlabama.org. Brought to you by the Alabama Department of Transportation, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Lots of sunshine today with a very pleasant afternoon. The high 68. Tonight fair with the low at 42. Tomorrow morning sunshine, clouds increasing by afternoon. The high 67. Much colder Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high at 50. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 53 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Want to jump into any of the shows? Call Tide 100.9 right now at 205-342-9904.
Will somebody answer that damn phone?
That's 205-342-9904.
1, 2, 3.
Back in, and Kalen DeBoer going to get an opportunity to spend a little time in his new home, Sweet Home, Alabama. After being on the road for a ton, Alabama hosting a big junior weekend this weekend with some of the top prospects from around the country for 2025 coming in, and I'm going to run down a little bit of that for you now in terms of expected visitors. So Alabama will be laying out the red carpet, of course. You're still wrapping up 2024 with Ryan Williams and Noah Carter expected to sign next week. But 2025 and beyond now is really the recruiting focus. And Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV, has compiled a list of visitors that are expected to be here. In-state prospects expected to be on campus this weekend include Crimson Tide 4-star linebacker commit Miles Johnson of T.R. Miller in Bruton, 4-star wide receiver athlete Derek Smith of Southside High School in Selma, wide receiver Dalen Upshaw of Phoenix City Central. Another Phoenix City Central standout slated to visit is 3-star offensive tackle Mal Waldrop. 6'5", 290 pounds. Walter, a really good-looking athlete as a tackle. Has offers from Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Miami, Penn State, Tennessee, and others. Out-of-state visitors expected this weekend on campus, including a name that a lot of older Alabama fans like myself will remember very, very well. Four-star linebacker Anthony Sacca of St. Joseph's Prep in Philadelphia is coming in. Now, Tony Sacca was a highly touted freshman quarterback for Penn State in 1988 when Alabama and Penn State played over in Birmingham at Legion Field, and Derek Thomas had a monster day for Alabama. In a defensive game, Alabama shut down Tony Sacca and Penn State 8-5 behind Derek Thomas. But now his son is a 6'3", 225-pound linebacker prospect and has offers from Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas A&M, and USC, and will be here, expected to be here for a visit to Alabama this weekend. Some other out-of-state visitors include one who's kind of an in-state visitor, Anthony Rogers from IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. 5'8", 180-pound dynamo running back, has been committed to Alabama for a while. He's originally from Alabama. Four-star safety Jordan Young of Monroe, North Carolina is slated to be here as well. And others expected to be in Tuscaloosa for the junior day include five-star quarterback Dejon Lee of Mission Viejo, California. Four-star linebacker Jaden Perlette of Buford, Georgia, committed to Georgia. Four-star wide receiver C.J. Wiley of Alpharetta, Georgia. Four-star receiver Marcus Harris of Santa Ana, Mater Dei High School. Four-star receiver Travis Smith from Atlanta, Westlake High School. Four-star tight end Chase Lofton of Omaha, Nebraska. And three-star linebacker Abdul Sanders of Santa Ana, also Mater Dei High School, the famed high school program that Alabama has had a lot of success recruiting since Nick Saban arrived, and now Kalen DeBoer with his West Coast ties from both Fresno State and the University of Washington looks like he's going to continue that tradition of recruiting out there in California. So a big, big weekend. And Justin, I have to, tell you that recruiting it's been said for a long, long time, but it's true. It's like shaving. Maybe you can miss one day, but you miss more than one, you're going to get sloppy. You know what I mean? You have to stay on top of it. And even now, with all of the stuff with the portal and NIL, which is making college football coaching much more difficult than it was even a couple of years ago, still, the lifeblood of your program has to be recruiting. You can't completely depend on the portal to build your roster. And even if you sign, let's say you sign 24 guys, and 2 years later, you've only got half of that, 12 of those. But hopefully those 12 guys are going to be really good players. So this is still very, very important. And for a new staff, building these relationships, this is a big weekend for Alabama football.
No, it definitely is. And I'm not sure if you saw, Gary, but Kevin Steele was on with Feinbaum, I guess yesterday or the other day, and he had a comment, and I'll paraphrase it here. But he said that he's talking to a recruit's mother in their house. The mom tells him, you have everything. You're going to develop our son. You facilities, coaches, everything. The mom says, you don't have the NIL. You don't have the money. It's incredible the change in the state of college football and that these coaches. But like you just said, the junior days like this that are coming up are just as important because they're not even going to consider your NIL if you don't have everything else in line as well.
That's right. And, that's the statement that you just made that Kevin Steele had is what I've been saying, almost verbatim. I have said since NIL came in that that's going to be the difference. A program like Alabama with Nick Saban, you're going to have a prospect and their parents come in and say, listen, you've got it all. You develop players for the NFL. You develop players for a career on and off the field. Academically, everything's in place. Support structure, everything is great. This would be an incredible college football experience, except we've got this mega money offer at another school. All things being equal, we would sign with you in a heartbeat. But all things aren't equal anymore Justin, and that's where we're at. And that's the struggle that we're trying to figure out a solution for. In that, listen, everyone wants an opportunity to win. That's why you compete. That's why whether you're at the FBS level or all the way down to NCAA Division III or, where there are no scholarships or NAIA, you're competing to try to win. But in the interest of trying to win, yes, these bigger programs, everything from facilities to everything they do is designed to give them an edge, designed to give them an advantage to stick out. And that's what Nick Saban was so good at. But that edge was lost some with NIL. NIL changes the structure of all of the program stabilizers that you put in place, from facilities to academic structure to nutrition to the weight room, all of those things. You do that to try to have an advantage, but it's all in the same vein. Everybody is allowed to have certain numbers of coaches and certain numbers of support structure. There are rules in place. There's still rules in place. NIL, the way it's been implemented, there are really no rules. It is the wild, wild west. And I know there right now that the NCAA is investigating the University of Tennessee for NIL, but that doesn't mean much is going to change. The NIL, unfortunately, is not doing what it was designed to do. And again, you could have a great program like Alabama that's got everything in place, and you could have an up-and-coming program who doesn't have near the structure, near the facilities, but they're saying, hey, we're going to pay you $1 million to come play for us. And they might get that guy. And then through the portal, like I've said before, you'll get a second opportunity to recruit a guy a lot of times. You missed a guy out of high school, well, you might get a chance to sign him when he goes into the portal. All right, let's jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline and welcome in Ellis. Good morning, Ellis.
Good morning there, Gary Harris.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just wonderful.
Good.
Getting ready for some, I don't know about you, but about February the 15th, we're supposed to get snow and ice up here, so the groundhog don't know what he's talking about.
They're already projecting it that far ahead? So that's almost 2 weeks from now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a buddy of mine that follows weather maps.
Okay.
He's like a big weather buff, and he said mark it down. About the 15th, we will have snow or ice.
Okay.
So,
I hear you.
In Tennessee, I don't know about in Alabama, but I know in Tennessee we will.
Well, what else is going on other than the weather?
I'm ready to come down tomorrow morning and come down and get ready to watch that basketball game tomorrow night.
Oh, so you coming in for the game?
Yes, sir.
You can make a day out of it with it being a 7 or 7:30 tip tomorrow. What is it, Ellis?
7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 tip. So I'll be there too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be. I was there for the game last week against LSU, and I'll be back in my media seat tomorrow night watching the Mississippi State game.
I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I do too. I think Mississippi State's a really strong, powerful team. Even though Alabama's beaten them once, you got to turn around and try to do it again tomorrow night, and it's going to be a good basketball game, I think.
Well, like everybody's been saying, and you've been saying the same thing, that Mississippi State is starting to play better. So it could be a good tough game for them.
Yeah, I think it will be. But in the end, though, I like the Tide to get it done. You know what I mean? Like
I do too.
Like this guy Roll Tide Willie, who's got a lot of momentum. I mean, it's all about the Tide, right, Ellis?
I think it's all about the Tide.
He's been in this. He's been in town. He's been in town this week, and I guess that our TV station caught up with him, or one of our web writers caught up with him yesterday, and I guess that guy's nephew, whoever it is that carries him around, is now saying that he's his agent. He's Roll Tide Willie's agent. So Roll Tide Willie's got him an agent now, man. That's big time.
Cool.
How about that?
Yeah, that is big time. But, I just thought I'd call in and tell you that I was headed down there to support my basketball team.
Listen, man, you're a good fan, Ellis. You're one of the best. You support all the sports, and you support them win or lose, and you're a credit to the Alabama fan base. I'll tell you that.
And I got Tommy from Romulus. He got me going to go to some of the softball games this year.
Heck yeah, man. Shoot, softball is a blast. So, well, have a good time this weekend. Be careful traveling down, okay, Ellis?
Yes, sir. Roll Tide.
All right. Thank you, my friend. All right. We are rolling along. Hey, listen, I want to remind you that T-Town Menswear, T-Town Gallery in the University Mall has all that incredible menswear to make you look your best, but all the Alabama football memorabilia that you could ever want. And Jalen Milroe has signed a lot of the prints for the Gravedigger, and I know Isaiah Bond's no longer part of the team, but you know what? That happens. It's still an incredibly memorable moment in Alabama football history, and Tom has got those Greg Gamble prints, some signed, some aren't, ready for framing right now at T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. 4th and goal from the 31-yard line. The game seemed over, and Alabama wins at Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Bring you 100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs, 205-553-9460, Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:31. Welcome back into the show. You're here as Justin Jones, and you hear the Eye of the Tiger. You can figure out what's next. The Auburn Report with Brett Pritchard from the Auburn Blitz, joining us to catch us up on what's going on down on the Loveliest Village. Good morning, Brett.
What's up, Gary? How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Before we get into sports talk, just know that, in this state with how we love football, and the rivalry is, we put it up there, I think, ahead of any other rivalry in the country. But there are players on both sides, both Alabama and Auburn, that, are generational talents and are respected not only by their fan bases, but by the rival fan bases. And certainly Terry Beasley is one of those people. And I know we were all saddened this week with his passing, and certainly, this is the other side of football. I mean, Terry, it's documented in his lawsuit against the NFL, and even going back to Auburn, the hits that he took, the concussions that he had, the health problems that he battled, and I just think we're all saddened by not only his passing, but by the struggles he had in life, and this is Terry Beasley, not me, saying, he directly attributes that to having played football as long as he did.
You're right. Gary, first of all, thoughts and prayers continue to be with his family, and he is so well remembered and is an icon in this state. I had a lot of my Alabama friends text me and make comments on our social media, said, look, I'm an Alabama fan, but I was in awe of watching Pat Sullivan and Terry Beasley play. And, Pat Sullivan passed away in 2019 with his battle with cancer. But, I will say this, and we talked about it yesterday on our show, it takes two to tango, and without Terry Beasley, Pat Sullivan probably doesn't win the Heisman Trophy. And I know Pat, if he were here, would say, and like he always said, that, he was a main reason that he was, had the opportunity to win that award. So, like I said, an icon, a legacy that will never be forgotten. But looking at, while we are talking about this today, just the long, extensive battle with pain and suffering that so many deal with after playing this sport. And you said it, Gary. We're all huge football fans. We love the game. I think we've made, and I say we collectively as the football community, but businesses and, technology has allowed the helmets and the pads and the things to be as top of the line as they possibly can right now. And, football is probably as safe a sport as it's ever been before because of the things that we've learned over the past. And, the rules changes. I know a lot of fans get upset with, some of these rules that have changed the way the football game is played, but it's all for safety. It's all for what happens to these guys when they hang it up, whether it be at the end of college or be after a pro career. And, the life expectancy of football players is lower than the normal person. Mm-hmm. And, you look at it from a standpoint of being in great shape. These guys are in immaculate shape and, do everything they can to eat right and work out. But it's the amount of punishment that they take playing the sport. And we've seen all the different things on sports science and all. When you get hit, full speed from a guy that's 6'4" and weighs 250 pounds, and they run the way they do, it's the equivalency of getting hit by a car going 15, 20 miles an hour. I mean, and that's over and over and over throughout a game, and then over years, that stuff takes its toll on the human body. So, but yeah, it's a sad situation. I think, obviously, the football community will continue to pour a lot of money and research into how to make this sport as safe as possible.
Yeah, and with Beasley passing, obviously, as you mentioned, Sullivan falling to cancer in 2019, it's another reminder of how far, we are now removed from Coach Jordan and even Coach Bryant, who coached several years past Coach Jordan, but still, the number of players that played for those two legendary coaches. And now you can still find them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're all gone, but we're starting to lose those guys. And I guess too, for guys like you and I, Brett, it's a reminder of, how much older we're getting. But that was, college football again. And this is not to play the memory. Let's take it down memory lane. Everything evolves. But for people who weren't alive, during the 70s, and that was a special time for college football, not in just in this state, but in this country. And sometimes you kind of long for those days when it was every game wasn't on TV, and you played 11 times on a Saturday, and you either went to a bowl or you sat at home. It was a different time, but a lot of times now I miss that era.
I'm with you, Gary. I think a lot of people do. You look at it from a standpoint of, we were talking about Terry Beasley's stats yesterday. I don't have them in front of me, but he still holds several records.
And that's what's remarkable, that he still holds a lot of records at Auburn from, with the way that people throw the football around now. That speaks to his greatness. It really does.
It does. And then to add into the fact that freshmen could not play on the team at that time. And, and I know that kind of has balanced itself out now because a lot of guys leave early, and so you don't see, stats. But you're right. The whole era, you didn't throw the ball back then like you do now. And so to only do it and have 3 years and to still be at the top of a lot of categories says a lot about those two men and what they were able to do as far as etching their name into the history book. But he'll be missed. I know a lot of former players, and so were Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley. A lot of people have put information out about the passing of Terry Beasley. He will be missed. Now Coach Dye is gone. I mean, like you said, Gary, icons in this state for Alabama and Auburn both. We're losing them. It seems like on a monthly basis.
Yep, starting to lose some of those guys. All right, to Auburn football in the current world. Hugh Freeze reworking that staff and hires DJ Durkin as the defensive coordinator. And I don't think there's anybody that follows football that doesn't think DJ Durkin is a good football coach. I think he's proven it. There is some, I don't want to say controversy, but, discussion in regards to what happened when he was the head coach at Maryland with a guy dying on the practice field. Right. But he's coached since then in this conference for a couple of different schools. And, you're trying to put the best defense on the field that you can at Auburn, and DJ Durkin appears to be a guy that can help you do that.
He is. Like you said, he's got a storied history in this conference. He understands the landscape, being at Florida, and then, bouncing around.
Ole Miss, A&M, yeah.
Ole Miss, A&M, just being part of Jimbo's staff and then now being at Auburn, he understands. And I think that's why you see a lot of guys kind of float from one school to the next in this conference. It's almost like a small NFL. You see a lot of coaches just cycle through the NFL. Guy gets fired at one place or leaves one franchise to go to another, and you see several coaches. They've coached at 4 or 5 different NFL teams, been head coaches. It's like, why do you keep hiring these guys? They failed over here, or they didn't do good here. Why? It's because it's knowing the way that sport is played at that level and knowing what to expect and how to deal with the things in those particular conferences. I think that's why DJ Durkin's numbers, speak for themselves. You look at the second year he was at Ole Miss, the defense was tremendous. You look at, his numbers, the records weren't good at Texas A&M, but really those were offensive issues for A&M, and his defenses really are what won games and kept Texas A&M in games the last couple of years. Had, like you said, some runs at some other places, and then there was some controversy, right? Well, his 3 years at Maryland, it ended the way it did with the passing of that young man, with the situation off the field. And, one of the deals is that, that's in somebody's past. I don't think there was anything malicious or intentional on his part. Maybe some decisions he would like to go back and change, maybe contributed that. But he's moved on in his career, and he is a good defensive coordinator. And I do think Chris Kiffin was the first choice. I'm not going to – we said that on the show the other day. I'm not going to sit here and spin this like I think DJ Durkin was the number one guy. I do think he was the number 2 guy for Hugh Freeze. I think, he tried to work things out with Chris Kiffin. And, frankly, I think Chris Kiffin likes the NFL. And, the NFL's for some people and it's not for some people. And but it didn't work out there for whatever reason. And so he goes to DJ Durkin and he hires him. So now the staff is complete. You got 2 new coordinators on staff. You got a new director of or GM of football operations in Will Redmond from LSU. So pieces are in place now for Hugh Freeze to kind of shift their focus to spring football, which will start in a few weeks. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how all that goes.
You mentioned Kiffin in the NFL, and we see Harbaugh leaving after a national championship to go back to the NFL. Jeff Hafley, the head coach at Boston College, leaving a head coaching job to become a defensive coordinator with the Packers. We know that the new offensive coordinator here at Alabama is already being looked at as a possible candidate with the Seattle Seahawks as the offensive coordinator there. So I ask you this, do you think we're going to see more of this if we can't figure out some way to settle into some type of system with this NIL and the portal that's a little more workable, that you're going to have a lot of these top coaches just say, man, I don't need this in college football. Not when I can go to the NFL and, just work with pros and not have to recruit, not have to deal with guys walking in the office, asking for more money. Do you think this is a trend that will continue?
Without a doubt. And I don't think I've ever been as confident about saying something as I am that. I do think, just from the things that I hear, and I know the things that you hear from the coaching circles, and just read the handwriting on the wall. This college football is unmanageable right now, and it's getting worse. The NCAA has reared its head to try to go after Tennessee and Florida State on some NIL. I just think it's all a joke. I really do. I think that it's so out of control. The fact that you would try to go after a couple of schools and make examples out of them for NIL violations is comical at this point. That's another subject for another day. But going back to what you were saying, I do think the coaches can go to the NFL. They can make a good salary. They can have time off, and they don't have to worry about catering to the kids the way they're having to cater to them, and they're not going to have to re-recruit everybody all the time. It feels like 24/7. You go out on the road to bring new guys in. You go get 10 new guys and 12 leave while you're gone. And so it just becomes a situation where it's unmanageable. There's a lot of pressure in college football to be successful. There's not enough time to do everything that needs to be done. That's why you see these new positions like these GM positions in college football, because they have to have them, because the head coach can't do everything they're being asked to do and be successful. So, yes, until something happens, Gary, I think you're going to see more quality assistants and head coaches decide, hey, I can go to the NFL and I can make the same amount of money and I can have more time off and I don't have to deal with all this other stuff. And I think it's the path of least resistance at this point. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm going to watch it, and we're going to see more and more guys. And this is my personal belief. I say what you want. We all have opinions. I think if there was no NIL and there was no transfer portal, I think Nick Saban's still coaching at Alabama, Brett. I really do.
I 100% agree with that statement. I think we saw this coming after the COVID year. And you look at the way college football changed so fast over the last 5 years and the things that were happening and the lack of control. You know, Nick Saban is a control guy, and he's a prime example of it's his way or the highway, but if you choose his way, you're going to have the best chance to succeed. And, you know, and he said that a lot of times. He said, you know, we're not for everybody up here. And that's fine, but those that want to buy in and do it the way I want to do it, we're gonna try to get to the top. And he lost a lot of control, Gary. Let's just be honest with this NIL stuff. And those guys, the older school coaches that demand that control from their players to be able to accomplish the things they need to do in their program, and at his age, and to have accomplished all that he's accomplished, I think it just hit him all at once. And he said, look, it's time for me to hand the keys off to somebody else, because I'm not going to be able to do it the way I've always done it. And I don't want to sacrifice at this point in time in my life to try to change again. So I do think that was a major contributor in him deciding to leave.
Let's get to Auburn basketball. Tigers, back-to-back road losses at Alabama and then at Mississippi State, but got back on track at home against Vanderbilt. And now tomorrow evening go into Ole Miss. That's a big game for the Tigers tomorrow night on the road.
It's a huge game. I mean, Auburn's about to go down a stretch of 7 quad one opportunities in a row. And it starts with Ole Miss. This team, 17-4, the number 16 in the country. They had a rough week last week. They dropped 2 games on the road. They were close, but they had their first 2 SEC losses last week. They rebounded Wednesday night against a terrible Vanderbilt team. I mean, there's no other way to spin it. They did take care of business. They won that game convincingly. They kind of got off to a slow start in the first half, but they did take care of business. But now, and like Bruce Pearl said this week, he said now it's going to find out who we are. You go on the road to an Ole Miss team that's 18-3. It's a very good basketball team. They took it on the chin in Neville Arena a couple of weeks ago. Auburn beat them by 30. They remember that, I promise you. And their crowd is going to be loud. It's going to be tough to go over there. Auburn's going to have to play outstanding to get out of there with a win. And then you bring Alabama in next Wednesday, coming off of a very close game up in Tuscaloosa. But, Auburn got down big early in that game and had to spend a lot of energy trying to fight back. Actually took a couple of leads late in that game, but weren't able to hold on, and it was because of lack of offense. And then you go on the road to a surging Florida team. This team just went on the road and knocked off Kentucky. So they're playing good basketball. And then you come back home and play another 18-3 team in South Carolina who is a giant killer. They've beaten Kentucky and Tennessee. So you got those next 4 games, and then you welcome Kentucky in after that. And then you have Georgia and Tennessee. It's a rough stretch. And it starts one game at a time. And you can't worry about the Iron Bowl Part 2 next week. You got to worry about Oxford, Mississippi this Saturday. So Auburn's still right there where they need to be with only 2 losses in conference. It's a big opportunity to get their first quad one victory. on the road, and they need it more than anything for their own confidence. They need to get this offense going. The defense it's been great all year. It's been great during this stretch where they've kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock. But Denver Jones, good to see him shooting the ball better this past Wednesday. Good to see the old Jalen Williams back. He had 21. Janai Broom's really been steady. But the point guard, the guard play overall, Gary's been atrocious. And, you and I talk about guard play all the time. If you don't have good guard play, you struggle, especially against good opponents. So Aiden Holloway is in a slump. I know he's frustrated, but Auburn's got to have him snap out of it. Trey Donaldson kind of seems to be out of sorts a little bit here recently. They've got to have him start playing better, and Katie Johnson has got to find himself again too. So guard play's got to improve.
Next week we'll get into some baseball and softball talk as well. Thank you, Brett, and word about the Auburn Blitz.
Yeah, I'll be on at noon today. We'll have Jason Caldwell on from inside the Auburn Tigers. Appreciate it as always.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, 10:49. We're winding it down here on the Gary Harris Show. We got one segment to go, though, on the TGIF edition, and that means that we can squeeze in a couple phone calls if you want to give us a ring on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline at 205-342-9904. We'll be right back after this.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
Garland Boulevard West, Krispy Kreme is open 7 days a week. To see our complete donut, coffee, and espresso menu, visit our website at KrispyKremeTuscaloosa.com. Krispy Kreme, hot now and anytime. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Lots of sunshine today with a very pleasant afternoon. The high 68. Tonight fair with the low at 42. Tomorrow morning sunshine, clouds increasing by afternoon. The high 67. Much colder Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high at 50. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 55 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The best place for your high school football coverage is right here on Tide 100.9 and online on Tide100.9.com.
You know I'm a dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had a runaway.
All right, we are winding it down. And you know what that means. It's the final segment when you hear Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home. So we are going to be turning it over to T-Town Sports Daily, but not for a few more minutes. So we're open in this segment. If you want to give us a phone call, you can get it in before we close it out, 205-342-9904 on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline. All right, big weekend ahead. We've already broken it down for you as far as Alabama men's basketball tomorrow night, 7:30 on the SEC Network against Mississippi State at Coleman Coliseum. The rest of the Saturday schedule for the SEC men, Arkansas is at LSU. That will be an 11 a.m. tip on ESPN2 down at the Maravich Assembly Center in Baton Rouge. At 12 o'clock noon, a big game. South Carolina lost at home to Georgia already this year. South Carolina's playing great right now. They try to get the payback in Athens tomorrow at noon on the SEC Network as they take on the Gamecocks. Missouri is at Vanderbilt, and this is one of those games that I guess if you're a Missouri or a Vanderbilt fan, you might watch. I say you might watch. because these are the two worst teams in the league. Missouri's at Vanderbilt, 2:30 Central on the SEC network. Yeah, they're going to play that one. And somebody's going to win it. Guaranteed. 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Florida is at Texas A&M on ESPN2. And then at 5 o'clock Central, Brett was talking about it, Auburn at Ole Miss on the SEC network. And that game will be followed at 7:30 by Alabama and Mississippi State at Coleman Coliseum. And then the marquee matchup in the SEC tomorrow on ESPN, right up against the Alabama-Mississippi State game, 7:30 on the ESPN, as I said, in Lexington, Rupp Arena, Kentucky, number 10, taking on number 5, Tennessee, in a huge game for both of these teams, because particularly Kentucky, coming off a home loss against Florida, but then Tennessee's coming off a home loss too against South Carolina, and they're on the road. So, but Kentucky being at home, I think makes it even more, even a much bigger game and pressure-packed game for the Wildcats to hold that home court advantage against Tennessee. But that is a jam-packed lineup of SEC basketball tomorrow. 7 games, all 7 games televised. And we'll be, of course, watching Alabama and Mississippi State here. And then on Monday, we'll recap that game as the Crimson Tide tries to get another big win before heading down to Auburn next Wednesday night. All right, this hour, the Gary Harris Show has been brought to you by Patterson Comer Attorneys at Law. Patterson Comer, feet on the ground in West Alabama. I think that's important. Paul Patterson and Mike Comer, they do it right. And I vouch for them not only as top attorneys, but as great, great gentlemen as well. You can call Paul in Tuscaloosa at 205-345-1000. Mike's in Northport at 205-759-3939. PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of services performed by other lawyers.
All right, that's going to do it for the show. T-Town Sports Daily coming up at 11 a.m. until noon, followed by the Miller's Edge from noon until 2. Then Ryan Fowler will take you home this afternoon with the game, 2 until 6. For Justin Jones, I'm Gary Harris. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll talk to you again on Monday.
Thank you for listening to the